We just had an entire leak just drop on the internet about an entire Pokemon game that was essentially completely scrapped. And I actually do think that a lot of the stuff from this canceled Pokemon game can actually make its way back into the next Legends game, which has a high possibility of being Legends Galar, Generation 8 based Legends game. I mean, I know it's a little bit all over the place right now because we have had a couple of rumors about maybe a Legends Kanto game being the next Legends game after Winds and Waves drops. We have so much information though. This video is going to be chock full of so much info, so make sure to stick around till the end to hear about it all and to hear about the giveaway that my bro Jzard and I are running up that we are also ending very shortly here. Let's get right into it. So Pokemon King and Queen, Project Rex, and Project Orion, and this is essentially the early stages of Sword and Shield. And the reason why I think this could be brought into the next Legends games is because a lot of it just sounds like some crazy lore, and even if it's not the next Legends game, I can still see them revisiting some of this stuff eventually. Project Rex was an early concept for the Pokemon game that would eventually become Sword and Shield. It predates Project Orion, the name used for the later, much more developed version of that project. So it sounds like Project Rex turned into Project Orion, and then of course it was Pokemon Sword and Shield as we know it today. Rex was never released as a game, and these files should not be read as a complete beta build. They are fragments of an early design phase, spreadsheets, presentations, setting notes, story documents, and later retrospective material. One of the clearest signs of how early this material is in the project branding. Rex era notes refer to the two versions as Pokemon King and Queen, and then of course released as Sword and Shield. And with the Legends Galar game, that specific game is supposed to apparently be based about 1,000 years in the past, and that's why I think a lot of this stuff could make sense for that game. Right here, some of the notes saying, through co-evolution, Pokemon go giant. Pokemon are no longer something that fits neatly small like in a pocket. A giant legend passed down in Northern Ireland. There is a Pokemon called the most fearsome that went out through the 7 stages of evolution. Its form was as large as a mountain. It absorbs many Pokemon and keeps growing giant, turning all wild Pokemon it has the power to dominate and control to the point of affecting other regions as well. It breaks the balance of power, not co-evolution, but one-sided evolution. And some bullet points down here if you want to pause and read. What makes Rex worth looking at is several ideas that later shaped Generation 8 are already there in raw form. The project imagines a Britain-inspired region, Pokemon that become enormous, a conflict around power and growth, and a provisional list of 100 Pokemon, but the main battle mechanic is not Dynamax or Gigantamax. It's a more unusual system called co-evolution, in which several Pokemon temporarily cooperate to make one of them stronger. The idea is important enough to deserve its own section below. It kind of reminds me of fusion in a way. Like, it's not the quite, literal fusion that people want to see, because people have been wanting to see a real fusion mechanic for quite some time, but it seems like they're kind of in a way inspired by fusion or something with this. And then here is a chart right here to kind of understand it better. Rex then changes direction. In the later documents, the region is called Dine, so I guess the Galar region was going to be called Dine, and the project is referred to as Orion. The world becomes more focused on sports, gyms, public spectacle, and a more universal giant Pokemon system. By the time finished games arrive, the system has become Dynamax, Gigantamax, and Max Raid battles. The point of this is not to claim that every Rex note turned directly into a final feature, but to follow the process of simplification and redesign. Now we have a timeline, which is really interesting to see like how early they were working on this and like the first initial kind of stages of Project Rex. 2016 May, we have Omari's Rex overview saying that the earliest concept was called Rex, a name associated with King and Tyrannosaurus Rex. The initial direction already included giant Pokemon, a British setting, and a future-focused theme. A working Rex overview existed by this date. The file names Omari as director and uses the working title Pokemon King and Queen. Then in June of 2016, saying a much fuller Rex concept list was being revised by late June. It contains the Taylor region, so I guess that may be a different name. 8 giant species, the 8 bones, 3 historical zones, and 100 slot provisional Pokemon structure. In August of 2016, saying Orion formally began approximately 2 months after the Rex material. The retrospective describes Orion as a new project rather than a simple continuation of the Rex title. The map was developed during a UK media tour. The region was then called Dine, and then the geography ran from countryside toward London with an inverted or reversed UK-inspired layout. Okay, so maybe it was called Taylor and then it was Dine. That may be kind of the history of the region name. End of the year 2016 in December, saying that the setting in the story had become much more coherent. Dine, the comet, and the evolution energy, the G phenomenon, gyms as a mass entertainment, which we definitely have seen that because they have some big stadiums in this game. The League Champion, and the Calamity Joker mythology. Now we're moving on to 2017, saying that the roads and the map labels were being organized. August of that year, the plot scenario was nearly complete. July of 2017, the project was presented as a brand new Switch title planned for September 2019 with 2 versions worldwide, 9 languages, online play, and a large-scale giant Pokemon system. And then we did get the final release. And this appears to be concept art, and dude, that looks awesome. I mean, it's pretty close to what we got, realistically. I mean, concept art always typically looks a little bit cooler, or like a little bit more, I guess you could say, hopeful or ambitious almost. But I think this looks pretty cool, and it's not far from what we got, right? So now we have more about the co-evolution gimmick, saying that is best understood as the earliest ancestor of the giant Pokemon mechanic that later becomes Dynamax and Gigantamax. The basic visual idea survives, a Pokemon growing to an enormous size and temporarily gains that power, but what changes is the explanation and the gameplay. Rex makes the growth depend on a group of Pokemon sharing power. Orion turns it into a broader energy phenomenon. Sword and Shield turn it into Dynamax and Gigantamax tied to specific places and battle rules. Here's a bunch of little bullet points if you want to pause. Definitely some really interesting points to make here. Saying how to catch co-evolution Pokemon because the structure is one of multiple Pokemon select together. By throwing a ball, you can catch them one at a time. This is the structured way to play with cooperative play over Link in mind. Characteristics saying depending on which Pokemon it do attach, their types are combined. Many possibilities are born from these combinations. Supporting Pokemon could pass their types to a host. A fire Pokemon supported by another fire Pokemon will produce a super type described as a stronger or doubled version of the type. So that idea in itself is pretty interesting, and I feel like the reason why they scrapped that is because it just sounds complicated. Like, that definitely just sounds like a very complicated thing to do and to make sense within this game. And honestly, maybe even just for like the average player, it's kind of confusing. Like, that's definitely a lot to remember. Here are some more of the notes saying super type. Some Pokemon combine 2 attributes such as fire times 2. That's the super type. New individuality and strategy are born. The files also mention removing Mega Evolutions and Z-moves in a favor for a new universal Pokemon-wide system, regional forms as partial gigantism like Alolan Executor, strategic wild battles in which the player reads the behavior of groups of Pokemon, a 2-player RPG structure, a temporary giant state that could also appear on an enemy Pokemon, and a giant catchable Pokemon after the player wins the encounter. As usual, a lot of different things that they kind of tested out or like theorized or wanted to do but didn't really see the light of day. And obviously with Winds and Waves, a lot of that is going to happen as well, where a lot of their plans don't actually happen and it's turned into something totally different. Giant Pokemon are not a side detail in Rex. They are one of the main ways that this project organizes its ecology, mythology, and progression. The surviving material describes more than one giant system, so it is important to not collapse every number onto the same list. Saying from the giant legend passed down in Northern Ireland, the legend that remains in this region, a story of Pokemon over 300 meters tall. It kept devouring all kinds of Pokemon and became super gigantic. It possessed a powerful strength. Thanks to that, there were no great conflicts and it was peaceful. And then of course, when the Pokemon is gone, a great conflict broke out. The King and Queen Pokemon appeared, which I wonder if those are the same Gen 8 legendaries, the box art legendaries that I got, or if they were planning on different box art legendaries. The power balanced out and peace came. Regional form in this region, perhaps as a vestige of that land. There are many Pokemon that look as if only part of them has grown giant. Alolan Executor is close to this line. Remove Mega Evolution and Z power, make everything Pokemon G. Now, I wonder what they mean by that. That's like the 3rd or 2nd time we've seen that little note. So I'm almost wondering, like, were they planning on Mega Evolutions and Z moves being in this game as well? Or is that just like a completely side note to like not have it be related to those evolution gimmicks? And here are all the 18 type based giants. So pretty big list here. Of course, we've got normal, fire, water, grass, electric, psychic, fighting, poison, ground, flying, dragon, bug, rock, ghost, ice, steel, dark, fairy, and then a blank one. It sounded like they're gonna have one giant Pokemon for every single type, and that would have been pretty cool. And I swear this does sound like they could pull this off in Legends Galar. And then of course, we have the 8 biological groups by mammal, reptile, bird, amphibian, crustacean, fish, insect, and plant. Not the same thing as the 18 type roster slots. regions. And some of the important Pokemon within this region were apparently supposed to be King, Queen, Ace, and Joker. So maybe all 4 of those could have been legendaries, maybe like 2 legendaries, 2 mythicals or something like that. It's really cool to see the original theming of this game. I feel like that's the coolest part about this entire league here. So the King and Queen are the central package legendaries listed as Fighting Dragon and a Psychic Dragon. And as modern age rulers, the Ace was the 3rd package legendary, the Steel Dragon type, and a champion or older rival. These labels connect with the version pair, the legendary mythology, and the wider theme of power and authority. So hold up, were they thinking about dropping a 3rd game? They haven't done that in a long time, meaning maybe they're going to drop King and Queen, and then the next year they would have dropped, I guess you could say, Ace, or whatever the heck they would have named that game. That would have been crazy to see a 3rd version of a Pokemon game in the modern era. Sounds like a crazy Pokemon. This is a lot to read, so I don't want to like bore you guys a lot. So if you want to pause and read about the Joker, it's definitely very interesting, and I totally do recommend this. The age groups is interesting to me because of King, New Age, Queen being New Age, and then the Ace would have been Middle Age, and then Joker, Ancient Age. So if we do get this Legends Galar game, I could see the Ace and the Joker kind of being more of a, I guess you could say, prevalent role, because that game should be older, right? So it would make more sense for them to kind of like base it on those specific Pokemon, if they're even doing that anymore, because who knows, you might not even get Legends Galar anymore. And then a ton of different Pokemon kind of like with that sword and shield theming. So we have sword, axe, rune, hammer, shield, head, armor, knuckle. Could you imagine if we got like Pokemon armor and knuckle? That would have been funny. All of these different kind of ideas here could have been potential possibilities for the game. The Rex region, Taylor. So I guess that this is what they were kind of trying to have that region be based on. And oh my goodness, here is a very detailed map. So I guess all of these kind of different things you're seeing on this map would have been maybe implemented within this game. Of course, like the Pokemon spin and twist to it to make it make sense in a Pokemon region, but that is definitely a lot. Apparently 8 challenges were going to be the main progression structure of Rex, making me kind of think they were going to get rid of gyms for these 8 different challenges. I might be wrong though, but hey, they have kind of messed around with that type of thing before where they get rid of gyms, so I could see them actually doing that, or originally planning for that with this game. There would have been 7 dueling grounds, 4 towns, 7 ruins, and 4 castles. 6 ruins seal the Isle of Man, while 4 castles watch over it. And you can see the map kind of drawing over different cities or specific areas, creating an actual Pokemon region. You can kind of see how we'd progress, and I think that is so cool. And now we have some of the Pokedex, which is so cool to me. So now the most interesting thing to me is looking at the starter Pokemon for this game, what we were supposed to actually have as far as the starters. You can see we were supposed to have a dog fire starter, which we are now getting a dog fire starter. So was it going to be Pombon, or was it just going to be a completely different one? I think it's probably going to be a different one, but very cool to see that we were going to get a dog fire starter a couple gens ago. Water starter, not really specific, and then a grass rabbit. Funny that they still kept a rabbit as the fire type. And I won't sit here and read every single Pokemon, but I'll just kind of like slowly scroll down this list. And if you want to pause or like point anything out, I mean, shoot, it looked pretty cool. Definitely, oh my gosh, a lot of regional forms, 18 regional forms. Dude, I was just talking to Jzard about this, about how many regionals will probably get in Winds and Waves. I don't think we're going to get that many. I think it's going to be less than like 15-ish. I do think we should get a good amount though, but like Scarlet and Violet didn't really give us many regional forms. Some more Pokemon down here, of course, like the Sword, Axe, Rune, Hammer, all those. Grasshopper, Bug, Mantis, Squirrel, Golden Egg Bird, Ugly Duckling Bird. It's funny that they said ugly in there. It's also very interesting to see how some are just like Fairy or like Steel, you know, just a type, and some are more specific, saying like Piranha, Crocodile, Ice Ship, Ice Battleship, Ice Vessel, probably being a 3-stage evolution line right there. But what I do like about this is that PokeOS, which is where I'm getting all this information from, huge shout out to them. They're not sponsoring this, by the way. I'm just like shouting them out because I genuinely think they have a fantastic website, but they actually did show us like some of these Pokemon that like either came out in the future or just were inspirations, or like what we actually did get, if that makes sense. So you can see Grasshopper Mantis line refers to how we actually get Gen 9s, Nimble and Low Kicks, Squovet and Greedent right here. Some more Pokemon that actually came out within Generation 9. And of course, just down here, I mean, that's pretty awesome. I think it's sick to see how, like, sometimes they actually don't give us these Pokemon until, like, a later region. So some of the Gen 10 new Pokemon could have been scrapped from, honestly, this game, any generation. Like, we have seen them bring back some old scrapped Pokemon before. All right, so this is a lot. We are, like, barely halfway through this entire page. So I'm thinking we save the Orion Project information for maybe another video. So guys, let me know if you want me to make a part 2. I just don't want to make this video too long for you guys to bore you guys. But this stuff is awesome. I absolutely love looking at this stuff. So if you do want to see a part 2, I would definitely like to make a part 2. And if you want to be entered into our giveaway that is 100% free to join, by the way, it's in our Discord server. We just have it in Discord so we could actually keep track of the entries and have an easy way to message the winner. 100% free to join, by the way. And we're going to be wrapping that up very soon here for the next couple of weeks. So come join up if you haven't already. If you are watching this far in the video, comment down below your favorite Generation 8 Pokemon. But I will see you in the next one. Peace.